my friends, and welcome to another episode of Hopewell tesol, or tesol. My name is Chris Hopewell, and I'm your tesol guy. Here at Hopewell tesol, it is our mission to make English teachers better at teaching English, and to supply English language teachers with enough basic tesol knowledge to confidently enroll in an English language teaching certificate program, should they choose to, if that tickles their fancy. So, what's today's tesol topic? Inquiring minds want to know. Today's tesol topic is using the board. You know, the whiteboard, the blackboard. We'll just call it the board. So today's lesson is about using the board, and I think this is super important. While it's possible to randomly write on the board as you teach, which is what most teachers do, I think you'll probably find it very beneficial to organize your board, as students usually appreciate a board that is clear, neat, and easy to understand. According to Jeanine Dobbs, shout out Jeanine Dobbs, shout out Jeanine Dobbs, using the board well encourages students to remember what they hear when they can see it too. It allows teachers to illustrate and clarify information and increases the students' interest in the input they receive. We talked about input, comprehensible input, I+1, Stephen Krashen, episode 7. Further, most likely your students will want to copy what you've written on the board, even if you don't tell them to. So we should make the students' job of taking notes as easy as possible. Remember, we want to use visual aids as much as possible. And the whiteboard is probably the biggest, easiest, and most readily accessible visual aid in the classroom. Okay, so what do you need to know about using the board? Well, every teacher does it differently. There isn't just one correct way to do it, but here are my humble suggestions. Most importantly, it's good to divide your board into 3 sections. One section on the left side for reviewing important points from the last lesson. One middle section, the biggest section. This is for most of your information. You use this section on the go. This is your biggest and busiest section. And one section on the right for key vocabulary and grammar points that have to be remembered, and key points from the current lesson. Basically, key points. In these 3 sections, but mostly the middle section, so much can be done. You can write messages, exercises, short texts, items for correction during speaking activities. You can show and brainstorm new words, grammar structures. You can outline class discussions. You can plan for writing tasks or exam tasks. You can display posters, pictures, and flashcards. You can display authentic materials like maps, photos, and advertisements. You can play picture drawing games, like the information gap activity I suggested in episode 4, and word games like anagrams or jumbled sentences. And we can practice storytelling with basic pictures on the board. Okay, now for some very basic tips. Please try to avoid long teacher writing times, where students just sit silently watching. Longer writing times should be done while students are busy doing something else. And turning your back for long periods of time to your students could be an invitation for bad behavior. Also, try to stand to the side of the board as you write. You don't want to block your students' vision to what you are writing. And it's also good to say what you're writing as you write it. Silence is usually the enemy in a language learning classroom. And try to write clearly and big enough for all of the students in your class to see, especially the students at the back of the class. Gotta help them, gotta love them. Also, using different colored markers are good ways of making important points pop out. Also, it's good to check what you write as you write. Spelling and grammar errors can easily happen when teachers are writing at the board and trying to think of a few things at the same time. What they're writing, what the students are doing, and what they're going to do next. Teachers are always juggling many thoughts, so errors are always possible. So give the board a little check every once in a while. And finally, it's good to check with your students before you erase something off of the board. Some students are slower than others. rules. So it's good to give everyone a chance to finish copying down important notes. Okay guys, these are just some very basic principles and tips on how to use the board effectively. How you use the board in class might seem quite trivial, but trust me, it's not. The board provides an essential connection between the teacher and the students, especially if the student has a high degree of visual spatial intelligence. Multiple intelligences, episode 5. The better organized your board is, the better organized your students will be in both mind and notebook. You see what I did there? FYI, my friends, a lot of these ideas come from my 20 plus years in the classroom. Shout out to me. Shout out to me. Other ideas come from the book Learning Teaching by Jim Scrivener. Shout out Jim Scrivener. And some come from the British Council. Shout out British Council. Shout out British Council. And other ideas come from random sources I can't remember. Shout out random sources. Shout out random sources. Okay, my friends, that's it for today's episode. I hope it helps you understand why using the board is really an art form. And the better you are at this art form, the more successful you will be as a teacher. If indeed this episode was useful, please don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. And I'll see you next week for another episode of Hope Well TESOL. And remember, if you want it to go well, you gotta hope well.